Hello my dears, and welcome back to my corner of the internet. Today I've got another book talk video to share with you guys, as well as a few shoutouts, which we'll save till the end. So let's just jump right into the book. And today we're going to be talking about The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Now, I had seen this book everywhere for a while now, and I was kind of hesitant at first to pick it up because I knew it was about World War II, but I kind of got the vibe from it that it was like a love story. Like a historical romance, and I'm not really into that, but after a while I was just like, okay, you know what, let's just try it. And I'm so glad that I did, because while there are love stories within this novel, it's so much more than that. So basically the story is about two sisters, Vianne and Isabelle, and they couldn't be more different. They are not close. They grew up, their mother died when they were young. Their father went to the Great War and World War I, and then after that he was never the same, and he kind of just shipped them off and didn't really want anything to do with them. He was broken by the war. So their family's just torn and they're not close. So as World War II begins, the story takes place in France, in Nazi-occupied France. And so for Vianne, she is the eldest sister. She's got a daughter named Sophie, and she's got a husband named Antoine, and he is gone to war. At the beginning of the book, he's leaving to go fight. So it's her and her daughter, and they're just trying to kind of survive best they can. It starts off, the Nazis arrive in town, and a captain comes to her door and just kind of says, I'm going to be staying here. And it's a house that's been in her family for hundreds of years, and so she says, you know, like, she doesn't want to live with him, of course, so she's kind of like, well, can I leave? And then, and he says, yeah, you know, you can leave, but then, like, the house is gone then. It's not your house anymore. So she decides to stay. So he's Captain Beck, and as far as Nazis go, he is a gentleman, and he, to the best that he can, treats her and her daughter well. He sometimes brings them food, because food becomes very scarce, and he's kind to them. He doesn't give them any reason to be afraid. He doesn't treat them poorly. So that's kind of what's happening with Vianne at the beginning. Then you have Isabelle, and she's always been a bit of a wild child, I guess you could say. And there's something borderline unlikable about her at first. You're like, no, I'm not into this girl at all. But the character development for Isabelle throughout the book, I found, was so satisfying and so well done. So she decides that she has to do something. She needs to do something when all of this is going on. And she at first gets sort of involved in distributing like posters and newspapers and propaganda and things like that. Well, propaganda, but you know what I mean. And she gets involved with that, even though she's warned it's very dangerous, and kind of in the process she's putting her sister and her niece in danger as well. And but she can't think about that. The desire inside of her to do something is so big. So she gets involved with this group, and then as time goes by, she gets more and more involved. And she begins to help pilots from shot down airplanes. If she finds them alive, she hides them, because if the Nazis find them, they will be killed immediately. And so she starts to try to move them out of France to Spain, where they will be safe and they can be sent back to their own countries. A lot of them are British pilots, and a lot of them are American pilots. And so she she moves them by foot from France to Spain through the mountains and in inclement weather. And she's just so passionate about helping these people. Meanwhile, back in France, Vianne and her daughter, they also had, her next door neighbor was her best friend. And time comes when the Nazis are at first deporting foreign-born Jews. So no matter how long you'd lived there, if you weren't born in France, you were being deported. And for a lot of families, that meant that the parents were being deported, but the children weren't. Like young children just being left in the street as their parents are carted away. So Vianne's friend is Jewish. So first she loses her job, and then she knows that she's going to be deported. And actually the captain staying with Vianne is kind of the one to warn her, like, make sure she's not home tomorrow because they're going to be coming and looking for her. So what Vianne decides to do with her friend is try to run and get her to the safe zone. So her friend has 2 children, Sarah and Ari, a daughter and a son. So the daughter is about the same age as Vianne's daughter, and then Ari is very young. I think he's just like 3. So they run, but it goes badly, and Sarah, the little girl, is shot. And then as the mom is going, she gives Ari to Vianne and says, please keep him safe. And so that's what Vianne does. She takes that child and she gets papers, identification papers, to change his name to Daniel. And then she's going to say that he was the child of her husband's sister who died, and that so he's her nephew, and she's adopted him, and she's raising him as her own. So as time goes by, things are just getting worse. The war is getting more intense, and then as the Germans start to lose, things just escalate even more. So this book it's heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. There were a few times when I would just be crying, and the ending is it's just beautiful. Because what happens is, at the very, very beginning, we meet an unnamed old woman, and it's 1995, and she lives in Oregon, and her son is helping her move from like the home that she's lived in for a long time into like an old age home, kind of. She's getting old. She's sick. She can't care for herself anymore. So we keep sort of being brought back to this woman throughout the book, and she has decided that she is going to be going to Paris for a celebration of sorts, a gathering of people in celebration of the Nightingale. And the Nightingale is actually what Isabelle's nickname became as she was getting these pilots from France to Spain. And like the first time she does it, once she gets there, they're like, that's amazing. First of all, that you did it by foot, but they weren't looking for you. They didn't know this was happening, so it was much easier. And they warned her, every subsequent time that you do this, it's going to become more difficult and more dangerous, because they're going to know that somebody is helping these pilots. Because when a plane goes down, they search for the pilot, and if they can't find one alive, they search until they find that body, so that they know that the pilot's dead. But to her, it's more important to do that than to worry about her own safety. Um, I don't want to give too much away because first of all, we would be here for hours talking about this book. There's so much to talk about. There's the way that the girls and their father's relationship sort of gets mended a little bit before the end. There's there's just so much so spoilers, here be spoilers. I'm not going to give too many, but if you don't like spoilers and you want to read this book, click away now. Thanks for hanging out. See you in the next one. Okay, so what happens with Isabelle eventually is she she gets arrested and they start interrogating her. And they demand to know who is the Nightingale. So for a brief moment, she's a little relieved because she realizes that they don't know that she's the Nightingale. So that gives her, so because of that, she's not executed immediately. She's imprisoned. And then with Vianne back in France, she finds her purpose and her mission within this war, and it's to save as many Jewish children as she can. So what she does is once they're deported, because eventually, of course, the Nazis come for the French-born Jews as well, not just the foreign-born ones. And so she is collecting as many children that have been abandoned or are about to be abandoned, not because their parents wanted to abandon them, but because they had no choice, or because they thought, well, maybe they'll be safe because they know coming with us, they won't be. Staying, maybe they will. So she gathers up as many as she can, and she brings them to the nuns at a church. And she gets papers to change their identities, and she manages to hide 19 of them. She keeps 19 of them safe. Plus the one that she has at home, Daniel. And so time goes by, so much time goes by. And eventually, the war has come to an end. Antoine comes home miraculously. And, they're a family. And when he comes home, he finds her pregnant. So she kind of only newly pregnant, and she knows she is, but he doesn't know yet. So in a few months, when she starts to show, she says, it must have happened the night you got back, when really we know that it happened about a month before then, when the original captain that was staying with her, something happens to him. I won't tell you what. It's terrible. And a new Nazi is billeting at her house, and he is horrible. For how Captain Beck was a gentleman, this man is an absolute savage, and he rapes her. And she ends up getting pregnant. So Antoine comes home, the war is over, and Sophie, her daughter, and Daniel, her son, are just playing and putting on plays, and they're so happy that he's home. And it's then that a car, pulls up and says that they're here for Daniel, because even though both of his parents were killed in the war, they've been notified that he has family in America, and they have reached out and they want him. Now, to poor Daniel, they're all he knows, and that's his mom and dad to him. But they take him because they want to keep the Jewish families together, because, like they say, a whole generation has been wiped out. We need to sort of start rebuilding. And then eventually, and it's just like, that was one of the scenes where I just lost it. It was so sad. And then eventually Isabelle comes home as well, after she's been arrested and put in a concentration, or in a work camp, I think, where she was just tortured, and she's sick when she gets home, and unfortunately she doesn't make it. She dies shortly after. But we find out that the woman from the beginning is Vianne, and she is now headed to this celebration for the Nightingale where she gives a speech. And after she gives her speech, a man approaches her, and we learn that he is Daniel. And he remembers her, and he gives her a big hug, and it's just, he thanks her for everything that she did, and it's a very emotional scene, but it's so good. It's such a good book. It exceeded my expectations tenfold. I couldn't put it down once I started reading it. It's such a great story. What scary times those were, and how insane it is to me to think that that was only, like, it was so recently that that happened. How did that happen? It's just, I can't even wrap my mind around it, and it's difficult to even try and talk about it because there's no sense to be made. But, a absolutely wonderful story. All right, so before we go, let's get a few shout outs in, shall we? The first one, YouTuber that I want to shout out, I'm pretty sure I'm going to say your name wrong, and I'm very sorry, so please correct me, is Maisha M. She is this absolutely stunning YouTuber that does these insanely gorgeous makeup tutorials. Like, I don't know what kind of magic she has, but if you love makeup tutorials, if you love bold, beautiful looks, definitely go and check her out. I'll put her link down below. Second of all is Christy James. Oh my god, she is this, first of all, very sweet, very nice woman, but currently right now she's traveling all over the place, and she is putting up vlogs, and it's just so amazing to get to travel the world with her. So if you love travel vlogs, definitely go and check her out. And finally, my friend Penny Cockrell. She's just the sweetest lady on YouTube. She does a lot of product reviews and things like that. Every so often she throws a book review in, so you know I love that. And she's very sweet, so definitely go and check out her channel. And if you go and check out any of these ladies, please let them know that I sent you. And yeah, I guess that's gonna do it for today. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday. Bye guys.